I am just so thankful for the invitation to be a part of this meeting and just people out there doing things to try to make our world better. It can be really discouraging and hard and stressful and confusing. And I know a lot of us feel like we might just want to pull our blankets over our head. I remember when I was teaching students and I was, encouraging them. I was a professor at Western Kentucky University. I was encouraging them to get engaged. And they were like, it's really hard. It's really hopeless. I just want to be able to have a decent house, a decent school, go on decent vacations, have a decent car, and be able to go to the mall, and I will be okay. And, it was this sense of I just want to be okay. And we can I think that if we make our life good enough, somehow we can be okay, that we're not connected to everybody else who is not okay. And I think increasingly we're learning that we are connected. And I imagine I'm preaching to the choir a little bit here when we think of that idea that none of us can be free until all of us are free. And so I guess I just wanted to open with that appreciation and that acknowledgement that things are difficult right now. I thought I would do it like this. I thought I would say just a little bit about what I do at the Kettering Foundation. And then I would talk, which I think leads into kind of what everyday people can do. I would talk a little bit about that and then open it up for conversation, questions. And if nobody has conversation or questions, I was a professor, I'm a preacher, I can fill the time if you need me to. But I do think that being able to talk with each other and have conversation is a lot of times more enjoyable than listening to just one person speak. So I come from I have a lot of different hats, but they all fit together, at least for me. Sometimes it's not 100% clear how the hats fit together to other people. I grew up in Arcanum, Ohio, so not too far. Are you from Arcanum?
Yes.
What year did you graduate?
1994.
Oh, you graduated 4 years before me. So you're I was in junior high when you were in high school, probably. I went to FM, so I may not have associated with the Arcanum people. Sorry. Little hometown politics. So I grew up in Arcanum, which is a farming community. I grew up on a farm, but Arcanum was the nearest place where you could get groceries. And my family is from Kentucky, so we were transplants to Ohio. So a lot of my background growing up was very rural, pretty conservative. My dad's family were tobacco farmers, poor tobacco farmers. My mom's dad worked at a factory. And everybody I knew were farmers, and my mom was one of the only moms I knew that worked outside the home. And we were kind of weird because my parents both had their college degrees. They were teachers, and people would be like, yeah, the Gish family, we like them, but they're strange, right? There's lots of books in their house. They're watching the news. They're getting Time magazine. Very odd. But I feel like it was a gift for me that I got to grow up around lots of different kinds of people. And so when I hear people say harsh things about people from the South, or harsh things about rural people, or even harsh things about people that we might disagree with, who might not support diversity or inclusion or equity or democracy or justice, I always just think about my cousins, and my Aunt Barbara, and imagine what could be said, what relationships could be built that would speak to the people I went to high school with. There were 2 people from my graduating class that went to college. Everybody got married. They went on to work on the farms. And so I have a real passion for reaching out and talking to folks that are not just the choir. I love the choir. You all are the choir. We need to preach to the choir. We need to support the choir. But it's also how do we get more people to join our choir, different voices, different kinds of music, different songs. And so my work at the Kettering Foundation, we have 5 focus areas. Mine is democracy and community. And in many ways, I think it's a little bit I've developed, it's turned into the grassroots arm of things. So we've had a new president at the Kettering Foundation a couple of years ago. So there was a little bit of a shift from how we used to operate. We've expanded what we do, not just dialogue and deliberation, but democracy kind of more generally. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the grassroots work I do because I think it can be really helpful as we're thinking about what can we do as we see democracy struggling, as we see our neighbors struggling, as we are struggling. And so I remember volunteering when I was a kid, and I worked a lot in Dayton through my church when I was growing up. And I remember like organizations coming in and like doing stuff in the neighborhood and then like leaving, and then doing stuff and then leaving. And I remember like also like people telling people in Dayton what they needed to do. And I mean, I was like a kid and I was like, yeah, these people should blah, 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 do these things. They should work harder. Why don't they go to school more? Or why don't they study more? And over the years, I've really come to recognize the ways that if we give people the support that they need, they often know what they need in their communities. And if we listen to folks who are living their own lives, we get further than if we tell people what they need to be doing. And I think that we hear a lot of like on the news and in the media and with each other and on social media, like from all directions, people telling people what they need to do. So I've really tried to shape the work at the foundation. My work is very focused on Dayton, at least for now, strengthening democracy in Dayton. I imagine eventually it will expand. And so I saw like people in Dayton are already doing amazing things. Nobody needs the Kettering Foundation to tell them what to do. They need support. They need people to believe in them. They need like soft landings when they make a mistake. I mean, when I failed at Cracker Barrel as a waitress, my parents like hired me to like, I don't know, paint their house and mow their lawn that summer, right? So I had like a soft landing place. And a lot of times when organizations with money make a mistake, they have a soft landing place. But if you're a nonprofit, grassroots person in Dayton, in a difficult area, you need that space to be able to make a mistake or make lots of mistakes as you learn and then figure it out as you go. So like this cycle of learning. So what I did is just had coffee with people over like for a year in Dayton. That was my main job, is having coffee and sitting on front porches and talking to people and just really listening, really trying to hear like, what are you struggling with? What is hard for you? People tell me, why would I vote? I don't care about voting. Nothing has ever changed in my life. I've never been able to pay my rent. My kids have always gone to bad schools. I work really hard and I can't get ahead. And I don't think any voting is going to make a difference for that. And rather than saying, well, like if you would just vote and do the things that you need to do, like then it would change, I say like, yeah, I hear that. That makes sense. So my work has 3 pillars. One is the Dayton Democracy Fellows, which is really a way to connect people who are already doing amazing work in Dayton. There's 15 a year, but there could be 100 a year, right? It's just sort of 15 people that end up I connected with. I had coffee. I can only have coffee with so many people. People who are really not about their own thing, but about like, how do we do this together? So there's the Dayton Democracy Fellows. There's work related to voting. Really keeping in mind that voting is the outcome of good work. It's not the good work itself, right? People don't vote because you tell them you should probably vote. They vote because they feel like their voice will matter. They vote because they feel like they belong. They vote because they feel like it will make a difference in their life, and politicians and people with money respond to the needs that they have. And so that's why you get college-educated people voting more than folks who are not college-educated, because the system responds to the needs and wants of college-educated people and not people who aren't. And so really thinking about what can we do, keeping in mind voting as like the eye on the prize, like, yeah, people being politically engaged is great, but what leads people to feel like they don't matter? What leads people to feel like they are left out? How do we build capacity for people to do the kinds of things that we're doing here, right? Most of us probably drove here in a car, or someone we knew drove us in a car. If we don't have cars, it's really hard to get to meetings. Most of us probably had dinner. If you don't have dinner, you don't really feel like going to a meeting. Most of us have our teeth If you don't have healthcare and you don't have your teeth, you feel really ashamed going out, or if your clothes don't look nice. So just thinking of all the things that prevent people from connecting. And so it's that, and then the Dayton Democracy Summit is the last thing that we do, which is a yearly gathering in Dayton. And I'll figure out a way if you want to get on a listserv. It's for anyone to come, it's free, it's at Sinclair. And it's intended just for people to connect with each other who care about this kind of stuff. And it's intended to be inspiring, right? People don't want to be sad all the time. Being sad and depressed does not lead people to getting more engaged. It leads them to having a banana nut muffin and scrolling on their phone more, or a beer, right? And just trying to like escape things that feel bad. So it's a way to connect. We have a local organization that hires local Dayton massage therapists to do like massage chairs. William Barber was our speaker last year. We're hoping he'll come back. We have workshops led by people in the community. And it's just intended to be a way to say like, let's build a movement, let's connect. You don't have to go to fancy DC events or fancy state house events or fancy things with the mayor. It's for everybody to come, no matter what your teeth look like, no matter what organization you're involved in. And it's really intended to be very nonpartisan, right? So it's not, sometimes democracy can seem partisan because at the moment that we're in, one political party tends to worry more about preserving democracy. But it's not a partisan issue. There are plenty of people on the right who care about democracy, who care about voices. And so really saying, how do we create a big tent for everybody who cares about community and voices and welcoming all kinds of people that make our country and our communities great. Two things I will say. I have a handout that has a list of ways to get involved in your community. And it's intended to be and I think someone will email it to you because I think that there's not a PowerPoint here. There's like a link, there's a little QR code, and it's on Google Docs, and it's just anyone can look at it. It's got like little baby steps. Has anyone seen What About Bob with Bill Murray? Yeah, okay, you know how he does these baby steps. Bob is very unstable, but he's like, okay, I can get there with baby steps. And I just think that is such a great model because maybe the Buddha had like, a big moment under the Bodhi tree, or Eckhart Tolle had big moments, but most of us don't like change our whole lives in a minute, right? We develop small habits and take little steps, and we're formed by what we do and who we're around and how we're talking to people. So just by getting engaged in any way, the littlest itty bitty way. So it's ideas for like little bitty engagement. There's some ideas for medium engagement. And if you're feeling like you really want engagement bonus points, you're wanting to go all out, there's like ways to get engaged in bigger ways. And it really emphasizes doing things with other people. Because we can read a guidebook about how to play basketball, but you can only learn how to play basketball when you actually play basketball. You can read how to play the flute, but you only really learn how to play the flute when you play the flute. And working with other people and solving problems and dealing with people is only by doing things. And we live in a society that really pushes back against us getting connected and doing things with other people. We just want to click on Facebook or, scroll or just get our bills paid, right? Get our kids to soccer practice and try not to have a nervous breakdown, right? And so how can we take these little steps? There's another link to a bibliography. So if you're a reader type, it's a selection of readings and links and books and articles on ideas that people have about how to get engaged, how to change things at the everyday people level. The bibliography does also include like structural change articles, which is great if that's your thing, but usually people don't want to change, my mom is not gonna go change the Electoral College. My mom is just like, what can I do next weekend? And it's for people who are like, what can I do next weekend kind of thing. So those will be shared with you. Long list of things, little steps, medium steps. But I'm happy to answer questions or talk, and I'm sorry that I only left 8 minutes for questions. Dang it, okay. Or comments too. Yeah?
What is the process like to actually become a fellow?
That is a good question. So the first thing is it's the city of Dayton at the moment, right? So the Kettering Foundation strategic plan is like, let's save democracy everywhere always, which is great. But like on a practical level, we had to bring that down to like steps that we're gonna do. So I started with the city of Dayton, and there are some criteria that we have, but really it's just like, there's not a good system is what the answer is. What I would say is that we are getting big enough, the work is getting big enough now that we're thinking about developing some working groups that are just standing working group meetings, folks who are getting together who care about voting, folks who are getting together who care about housing, folks who are getting together that care about the fact that they try to feed people downtown and someone wants to arrest them for that. So how do we make sure people get food? So if you're interested in getting engaged, I would encourage you to email me, and that can be shared with you. And I'm happy to have a group coffee. I spend a lot of time in coffee shops, individual coffees. And I am thinking about like, how do we, once, Dayton is the focus, but how do we expand and how do we create connections between City of Dayton and surrounding areas? We do work with MVPRC, the Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission, that has a lot of outreach, including up to Darke County, where my people are at. And I love the idea of especially addressing suburban, urban, rural differences and how to build bridges. So reach out, let's have coffee. That's a great question. So meeting people, so I'm thinking in particular of the Dayton Tenants Union. So the Dayton Tenants Union is an organization that was started by people in Dayton, like everyday citizen folks. It came out of some of the work that advocates for basic legal equality were doing. And there was the sense of like, man, people live in these rented places in Dayton, and when they try to ask their landlords to address the mold or address the bugs or address the fact that the wires are dangerous, they feel like they don't really have any recourse and they don't really know what their rights are. And so the Dayton Tenants Union, they meet in the library every month or every couple of months, and it's like this non-judgmental space, and they bring an attorney who I think is connected to ABLE, who can just answer people's questions, right? And so that's one of the things that we routinely go back to. And Omega CDC over in Northwest Dayton does a great work on this kind of thing, which is say like people have needs and they're willing to build relationships and create trust when we can begin to address those needs, right? If someone comes to you and says like, I don't have heat and it's winter, and you're like, maybe you should vote, I can think what they're gonna say. So I think like finding ways to really listen to like what people are dealing with like now, right? And not trying to explain why that's not urgent. Or I think of my friends and family in Kentucky, a lot of them struggle economically. No, not that many people went to college. And they, my cousin works at the dollar store, and they are they wouldn't be at this kind of meeting, probably. I'm trying to think of how to say that. But they have a lot of needs, right? And someone listening to them and not saying, you're wrong, why do you hate so-and-so? Why are you so judgmental? Instead saying, man, that's really hard. So I would say like meeting needs and leading with empathy is like a good first step. I think that that's great, is people being able to attend virtually, and also thinking about when we have meetings, right? So the Montgomery County commissioners often met during the day when a lot of people work. So it was really hard for people to get to those meetings. And based on feedback from the community who said like, hey, we would like to be able to come to these, but we can't, they've started having some of their meetings in the evening. So really thinking about accessibility, and not just the ways that we think about it, but talking to folks. So when we had the Dayton Democracy Summit, we really wanted neighbors to come, everyday folks to come, not just like nonprofit people who do it as their job. And one of the things we ran into is like a lot of people didn't have computers. They were registering on their phones. It was hard to register on your phone. We weren't used, like it didn't occur to us that that would be an issue. But then we had name and like one of those little stars that you have to fill out your name. But we also had a star where you had to fill out your organization. Well, we heard through the grapevine from connections we have, people who are like, well, I guess they don't want us there. I don't have an organization. It's only for people who have an organization. And so even like little things like how do you register? What information do you require when you register? Can really help, especially when people already feel like they probably don't belong, right? Just assuming, and I'm a psychotherapist, and I just think of the role that shame plays in so much of what happens is like, I already have the sense that I'm not good, that I don't belong, that you're judging me. And so how do we begin with saying, we want you here, we want to hear what you have to say, and without immediately correcting it. You can correct later when there's a relationship of trust. Well, this has been such a pleasure. I will be sticking around, so if you want to connect afterwards, my information will be shared. Feel free to reach out. And I really appreciate the opportunity to see the good work you all are doing and share a little bit of ours. So, thanks.